What's up, gentlemen? Back again for another episode of the BGO Blind Pig, courtesy of bgobsession.com. On a win week, 2 in a row. Awesome. So we got a lot to talk about, but I'm going to go through quick intros, and then we've got a new face here. Top left is Mark. You can find him on the board as Ohm. Top right is John. You can find him on the board as Boone. Bottom right is Bob. Hails as Neo. I am Derek. You can find me at Silent Threat. And then if you're listening, I'm sorry, that meant absolutely nothing to you. But if you're watching, in the bottom left is Patrick, a longstanding member of BGO. I know a lot of us have a lot of respect for him. I'm going to go ahead and let him introduce himself, throw his name on the board, maybe some credentials about where you can find him, and then we can kind of dive feet first into this thing.
Yeah, I'm Patrick. I'm on the board as Kel Lawrenson. Those of you who see my name, I run the BGO Ballers Fantasy League. I've been a Redskins fan since basically birth, so 45 years. I grew up in the DMV just outside of DC in Maryland, actually just a few miles from where the FedEx dump is right now. So been to many games there. Love this team. It's been a rough, basically my entire adulthood has been rough with this team. The last Super Bowl was when I was in high school. So it's been a rough adulthood, but you learn to stick with it and still be a fan, and lots of tears, some of joy, but mostly of sadness. But yeah, I love talking football and watching the team.
My son was born the year we won in 91. So he's 30X now, 31 years old, and he's really never seen us be much of anything.
So for him, it's like breastfeeding, man. It's all downhill from there. It's like breastfeeding, the Super Bowl, and then nothing.
That's it. Been a dry run ever since.
Patrick, you mentioned BGO Ballers our fantasy football league, which if you didn't join any of our contests this year, make sure you come around next year because we have some really great contests. But what's going on in that fantasy football league? Because it seems like somebody's really running away with it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's all upside down.
Yeah, I know. It is all upside down. I scored 55 points this past week. It's extremely upside down.
Crazy. It's a crazy season all the way around.
I have complete faith in that guy that's running away with it to his toe.
You know what's going to happen. I'm 7-0. That's why I'm being snarky about it. But which I'll never be 7-0 again ever. But I know it's going to happen. I'm going to get that bye, and then I'm going to get walloped by whoever snuck in at the last minute in the playoffs. So that's how fantasy football works. But anyway, on to
actual fantasy football. I like to tee these things off sometimes with a hypothetical or a funny anecdote or some weird conversation. But there is actually speculation around this team right now about if Chase Young should be on the trading block. And I know some people hypothetically threw it out there, but I've actually heard it kind of rumbled behind the scenes that there people are wondering if he could be moved as early as this offseason. Because I don't think he'll pass the physical at the trade deadline. I'd love to hear you guys respond. So I'll step back and respond at the end of it. But I'm just curious, what would your price be, and would you be for it?
I am not for it. I may be in the minority, but I haven't seen enough yet to decide that he's got to go. He's a physical specimen, and I think the potential is there still. We've got him for 2 more years on his rookie deal. I'd like to see him back on the field healthy before I make that kind of decision.
I believe we have to make the decision this offseason if we pick up his 5th-year option.
Correct.
If we could. And that's fair. I mean, we may not see him at 100% this year. And if the guys who do see him every day, and once he gets back on the field, even in practice, I mean, we'll have to rely on our coaching and personnel types to decide if they think he's going to come all the way back. But I would like to see the Chase Young that I saw at the end of his rookie season again, because that guy was special, and that's a guy you don't let walk. But he may never be that guy again. So
that's a big butt right there, though.
It is a big butt. I will not lie.
And he didn't look like the same player in his second year, even when he was healthy. To me, he had that stretch of games where he looked clueless and like
the whole
what
team
he was supposed to be doing.
The whole D did, right?
So I'm just saying that if he's not going to ever return to that the athlete, the things that he could do that made him special that first year, and the reason he was the number one pick, consensus number one pick in the draft, he might never be that guy again. And if they feel like that might be the case, and I would absolutely consider offers. It would have to be a number one, it'd have to be a first round draft pick. But I know most people think that's a crazy idea, but it's all about if he can come back from that injury.
Right. We're on the same page on that. I'm not ready to let him go before I have a chance to see if he's going to be that guy again.
I actually think he will pass a physical. I think he'll play next week. Wait, do we have a bye next week to buy, or is the week after?
Vikings next? I think
we've got a couple weeks.
We've got the Colts. Yeah, I think he plays. I don't think he plays this week. I think he plays next week. I'm torn. Chase Young on his day is better than Sweat. And if I got to keep one of the two of them, I'm keeping Young, assuming he can do this again. He can, get back to that same level. If he can't, or I don't think he can, and somebody's willing to give me value. But again, I'm kind of like John. We're talking at least a first round draft pick here, if not multiple draft picks, for a guy that was taken number 2 overall in the draft, still on his rookie contract. So, I mean, whoever trades for him effectively has him on a rookie contract for 2 years. That's cheap for a guy that can get after the passer the way Young can get after the passer. But I think it would have to be like a Herschel Walker kind of a deal almost for me, unless I don't think he's going to get back to that level again and I can fleece somebody.
I don't think there's anybody on the roster, including Terry McLaurin, that wouldn't warrant a Herschel Walker type deal, just if we're being realistic.
Do the Rams have any picks left? Get Sean McVay on the phone.
Just for your reference, Bob, the bye week is the weekend of December 10th, 11th, 12th.
That's right. We're very late this year.
We are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks away from our bye week.
Okay.
Good, Patrick. What do you think? Chase Young on the block.
So I mean, I kind of agree that you wouldn't take anything less than a 1 for him, but at the same time, I wouldn't throw him out until you see what he can do. But if you think he can't get back to that level, then yeah, get what you can for him. Get a 1 for him, right? As far as picking up the 5th-year option, I think you pretty much just have to cast this year out and pick it up, right? And that essentially is the 4 years that you normally have. You just got to bite the bullet there and pick up that contract, unless you think he can't do it. If you see something in his knee medically, or when he's out there practicing, or if he gets on the field this year, you see he can't get it done, then maybe that changes your decision. But I think you need that extra year to evaluate him, because he will only have 4 years, throwing out this year and half of last year with the knee injury.
I know we want to get on to other topics, but has anyone else wondered, why not just shelve him for the rest of the way this year? Obviously the injury was a lot worse than they indicated when he didn't come back at the start of this year. He's not in football shape. He's not even been he's kind of been cleared, but not cleared. To me, to bring him in mid-season, just sit the guy, let him fully recover. If you really think he's going to fully recover, why take chances in a year where we're going to be damn lucky to have a chance to sneak into the playoffs?
Maybe they want to make the same determinations we're talking about. They need to see what he's got too, so they can decide if they're going to try to keep him around for a second contract.
Yeah, but if you bring him back and he looks terrible,
then I know.
What have you accomplished?
Well, you've decided you're not going to keep him, right? You're not going to pony up $100 million to keep him.
Right. And you also destroy whatever, value he has. I don't know.
I think it's a glass kind of I think it's a delicate balance. Because if you designate him for return, they can't even see him in practice right now. You know what I mean? So it's not even like they can evaluate if the knee is going to be able to hold up, let alone put him on the field during a game. I think you have to bring him back, because you have to see if his knee's going to hold up. for those who are on the pod, I don't know if you remember, I was adamant that Chase Young was the pick at number 2. I understand it. I get it. I on draft day, I said, don't be stupid. Don't be cute. Don't overthink this. Take Chase Young. Take the guy that's supposed to be, the best pass rusher since Lawrence Taylor, and you move on. It's an easy pick. It's a no-brainer. So I say all that to say we took him with the second pick. In his rookie year, he won Defensive Rookie of the Year that you could argue was probably not even deserved, as bad as that sounds, because he had 7.5 sacks his rookie season. He had some pretty, amazing plays. The hit on Burrow that comes to mind to force the fumble. Last year he had a couple decent plays, but he had 1.5 sacks in 10 weeks last year, where he didn't get hurt in week 3 or 4. It was week 11.
Yeah.
So
I thought about that when I threw my answer out there, Derek. I can't help but think that his teammate didn't do him any favors to start the season off. You got a guy coming off Defensive Rookie of the Year performance. He's already feeling a little bit of pressure there because he's got to live up to that again, right? He's set a pretty high bar for himself. And then Montez Sweat steps out in front of the cameras and says, "Yeah, Chase Young and I are going after the record for a tandem in sacks in the NFL." That's just,
we all told him to shut up when he said it, because that was my intro question, the podcast after he ran off on his mouth, was how do you feel? And we all were like, dude, just shut up. All right. Yeah. So here's my point. Look, we're 8 weeks into the season. A direct comp here is Aiden Hutchinson, right? We've all seen him. He was the number 2 pick in the draft. Am I right?
Yep.
He has 4.5 sacks. He is on pace to pass Chase Young in his rookie season.
3 of those were against a horrible Washington offensive line, dude. You got to devalue those 4.5 sacks. I don't
devalue anything. And yes, the eyeball test matters. So here's a bigger stat for you to play the other side of that. The guy's got less than 10 sacks in 26 weeks of football.
I'm not sure I know where you're going with this, bro.
My point is, if there's value, it's not going to be either he's right and he is what you thought he was, or the value is where it is now. I'm not necessarily advocating you trade for him. I just heard all 4 of you guys say that you basically have to evaluate his knee and then make a decision. And I'm starting to say, let's take a look at his play and see if his play even warrants him being considered to be held on to.
So I guess that brings it around to the original question. If somebody offered us a first before the trade deadline, are you a yay? Who's a yay or a nay?
I might have to do it, man.
Right now. Because
the other thing I have to think about, the other thing I have to consider is we have 2 guys that are in the top 10 in pass rush win rate right now on this current defense, in Obata and in Tuhill.
I evaluate that question with, several different factors. First is, if I'm letting go of Chase Young, I want to keep Daron Payne. Do I feel like I can keep Daron Payne? What's the temperature between the team and Daron's side of the fence? Is he even interested in staying? Because if he's not interested in staying, I'm not really sure I'm willing to part with Chase Young at this point in time, Mark. I think that might be a non-starter if I really feel like Payne is gone. It also depends on where that number 1 is. If we're talking about a number 1 from the Philadelphia Eagles, first of all, I don't want to trade him inside the division. And second of all, I don't want the 32nd pick in the draft.
By the way, the Eagles have the number 6 right now. They've got the Saints pick also.
Well, I know.
They're going to have a high pick.
Yeah, the question is, will they give me that for Chase Young? Probably not. They're probably going to want to try and give me that late 20s, early 30s that they end up with. I don't want to pick that low. I mean, granted, a second number 1, but.
Well, the other factor is, are we going after a quarterback in the draft? If you're going after a quarterback in the draft, which maybe we should have done last draft, then that changes that's another whole aspect of the conversation. Because then you're probably talking about needing multiple picks to move up to get a guy if there's somebody that you really covet. So there's a lot of layers to it.
And I don't know if there's anybody we really covet.
When's the trade deadline?
November 1. The current trade deadline is November 1 in season.
Roger that. So I'm a no, unless, I mean, if somebody offers us Herschel Walker trade, then that obviously that changes the conversation, but I'm still a no.
This front office and Rivera are conservative as hell, guys. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
I would literally shit my pants if they did something that, whether you think it's idiotic or a genius, if they did something that bold, I would collapse.
Well, and the other thing is that typically the trades we see in season like this are trades by teams that feel like they have a shot at the whole thing and they're looking at adding firepower for the immediate.
Right.
Nobody's going to drop big. Nobody's going to drop anything big on Chase Young because.
Well, he's not playing for one thing.
Exactly. He's not playing. And even though he may offer tremendous potential, we've already pointed out, every single one of us at one point in time or another this season has said he may not be himself until training camp next year. So do you ship your number one away for a guy that may not have enough to help you get anywhere in this year's postseason? And I think the answer to that is no.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Who would want him right now? If we're having this debate as fans, front offices are, as much as we criticize, much smarter than we are. They see
some of them.
I gotta say, are they though, Patrick?
present team, maybe not so much, but there are a lot of smarter GMs. And like you said, contenders are going to be the ones trading for a guy like Chase Young, right? We're not getting the Texans or the Panthers or some of the bottom feeder teams to trade. It's going to be a contender, and it's going to be a late first round pick. And is that really worth giving up a guy who could come back and be great again? It's unknown. It's unknown. So, I mean, I would say I'm a no, like as far as not trading him, unless somebody just really blows the doors off.
Yeah.
Let's get him back on the field, see what he can do, and then make that decision. Maybe he comes back and he's okay. Physically he's good. Maybe he's not dominant, but he's still a good player. Then maybe you have this conversation in the offseason and, somebody says, hey, we see the potential. We'll give you something good for him.
For the record, I'm not advocating the trade. I'm just pointing out all of the options. I don't think I trade him away. At this point, he's your horse. He's your big dog. He's your X factor. Here's the thing: is the bigger question and the more important thing, outside of his value of turning him into a late first round pick, is how valuable is he if we can actually utilize him within our defense? You know what I mean? Like, if we can actually get Del Rio and this D-line coach on the same page, because his D-line is actually playing as well as it has in probably the last 10 or probably the last 30 years. Let's be real. It's one of the better D-lines in football, and arguably it might be the best if you look at the way the Rams are playing right now, because they were unequivocally the best defensive line in football. So looking at it, he can be an X factor in a unit that's potent. Now you just wonder if the coaches can get what you need out of him and reel him in, make sure he plays within the playbook. Mark, you're chomping at the bit. I see.
Isn't it funny how that changes? We were 3 weeks ago talking about our defensive line was the ridiculous over expectations that we had of this defensive line, and how, and all of a sudden they're exactly turning out to be exactly who all the preseason hype said they were. They're a very, very good defensive line, with the four of them essentially have made the last 2 or 3 quarterbacks we've played. They've just run roughshod over them with very little help from linebackers, and they can keep that going.
Somebody in chat said, when are we going to dial up a blitz? It's like, we don't need to dial up a blitz.
Yeah, I don't.
Beautiful thing when you don't need to dial up a blitz.
Yeah, I'm not rushing to leave a hole in my coverage to dial up a blitz right now when Deron Payne or John Allen are absolutely capable of sacking the quarterback all by themselves from an interior line position. There are teams in the league right now that would be loving to get the production out of their Ds that we're getting out of our tackles. Think about that for a minute.
Yeah.
It's we screamed for 2 years about how we never dial up blitzes. And I hope the people that we involved and we conversate with understand we've never said that because we want to blitz. We've said that because the D-line hasn't been getting home. Well, guess what? It's getting home. So now you don't need to dial up the blitzes, so I at least I think I can speak for the other 3 guys that are regularly on the podcast. And Patrick, we've gone back and forth on the board multiple times and had multiple conversations, but where do you stand? I mean, are you comfortable with this front four, or do you want to see the blitzes? Do you want to see more of that exotic, Cam Curl coming off the edge? Where does the happy medium lie?
Yeah, I think it's situational. Like, when's the right time to dial up the blitz? The good coordinators, they know when the time to bring the blitz is, right? You think about the good defenses throughout history, they know when to bring that fifth guy, right? Or to bring, just a safety or linebacker and drop somebody into coverage, right? They know the right time to do it. But if you're getting production out of the front four, you don't need to do it all the time, right? You don't need to be blitz happy. So I don't know when the right time is, but you definitely got to keep them honest. You definitely got to, blitz a little more. I don't say a little more, but you got to blitz some. But when you dominate when that front four, you can have the rest of the guys cover. That's a great thing to have. That's a fantastic thing to have out of your defense, because you don't have to expose the secondary or the linebackers who, let's be honest, they struggle. So, you get that pressure with that front four, you let those guys do their job on the back end, and it makes it easier for them when the front four is doing their job.
Have you guys noticed how much better our defensive backs look the last couple of weeks? It's amazing how that works, right? Like, all of a sudden, St. Juice looks like he might be a real, he could be a shutdown corner down the road. Fuller even looks better. I just think it's because of that defensive line getting that pressure. They don't have to play 5 yards off of every receiver. They can take a little bit more risky approach to it. And I've seen them get more aggressive every week that we've played, and I hope that continues.
Yeah, both.
I said for years watching Seattle play that I didn't think their defensive backfield was as great as everybody bragged about, because their down linemen got pressure consistently. And if it wasn't a down lineman, it was a linebacker coming in from an unexpected angle. But quarterbacks constantly had their head on a swivel, and they were constantly terrified of where the next hit was coming from. And that made them do things with the football that they shouldn't have been doing, and made Seattle's secondary, granted, they were always in the right position, but we've all seen this year, you can be in the right position and lose out. And you're absolutely right, John. Our down linemen are getting pressure there, and they're making the entire rest of the defense look good. But I was curious. I'm like, I haven't looked at the sack numbers in a while. Number 3 on this team is in sacks? Jamin Davis. Very quietly, Jamin Davis. Yeah. Granted, that's because in alphabetical order, Davis comes ahead of Sweat. But, he's got the same number of sacks as Sweat.
Yeah, but
our leaders are the defensive tackles. Daron Payne and John Allen are the leading sackers on this team right now.
To that point, though, in defensive Sweat, that guy has been getting to the quarterback.
He has been
as frequently as I've seen in a long time. And the reason why Payne and Allen have the sacks is usually because Sweat's coming around their backside and the quarterback steps up into hell. You know what I mean? Like, and I would like to say, does the site you're on have QB pressures? No,
okay. I'm just staring at the stat page on ESPN. It's not as detailed as like Pro Football Reference.
So I would wonder how many QB pressures Sweat has. You know what I mean? Because he's affected plays, man. Like, that guy has been a difference maker in this defense that we've seen over the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Something went on. The light went on for Mr. Sweat 3 or 4 weeks ago, because he's not just rushing the passer. He is setting the edge. He's is blowing up runners in the backfield. Yeah. He's playing the way that we expected and hope to see him play all along. And I hope that continues. I just wanted to say two real quick things. One, we're all old enough to have watched Richie Pettibone's defenses. Mm-hmm. What made that work, particularly in 91, if we had podcasts then, I would have railed about it then. We got pressure with those down 4, and Pettibone made magic with the back 7. He had quarterbacks seeing ghosts out there.
Yep.
When he did send the blitz occasionally, he did something that Mr. Del Rio doesn't seem to do as well. Our blitzes don't really get home all that often. We seem to telegraph them. We're just some teams just have that knack, right? For the guy hits the line at the snap and he's in the backfield. Our blitzes always seem to be a half a beat slow. But the back seven is the other thing I wanted to say. We've made a lot of improvement since the season began. I think a lot of it had to do with Mr. Jackson was underperforming. We were missing Cam Curl early. I think we got a lot more organized looking when Curl got back on the field. St. Just is looking like a legitimate outside corner. He's not a slot corner. And if Mr. Wild Goose could tackle anybody, he'd be a pretty good slot corner.
Yeah, I think somebody needs a little bit of credit for setting Jackson down. You know, we've talked, well, I know after games this year, but almost every week last year about how there were guys on this team that needed to take a seat, and the coaching staff seemed married to their starting 11. And I don't know who made the decision on the defensive side of the ball, whether it was the defensive backs coach, whether it was Del Rio, whether it was maybe even Ron Rivera. I don't know who made the decision, but the decision to set Fuller down, at least for a couple of games,
Jackson.
seems to be
Jackson.
Jackson, not Fuller. Yeah, set Jackson down. And it doesn't just have the impact of taking a guy off the field that is underperforming. It has the impact of saying to the other 10 guys, wait, maybe I'm not safe. Maybe my big contract doesn't guarantee me a spot in the starting lineup. Maybe the fact that there isn't anybody behind me with any experience doesn't guarantee me a spot in the starting lineup. Because who's playing? Wild Goose. How many games does Wild Goose have in the NFL? All of them have been in Washington uniforms, I'm pretty sure. So I think that as much as anything has lit a fire under the entirety of the defense.
I know how unpopular it was at the time, and I'm not saying I don't like seeing players get called out either publicly, but everyone was freaking out when Del Rio, and it really wasn't much of a call out. He simply said Jamin Davis needs to play better. I mean, that's essentially what he said. It wasn't some, personal attack. Well, guess what? Jamin Davis is playing his ass off.
Better.
And it started the game after he got called out. So I'm just saying, sometimes football coaches, maybe they know there's certain things they have to do that they might not do in other cases, but I think that had an impact.
I know I played better when my coaches called my ass out.
Well, and I think it's very much a personal thing. It depends on the player. Some players respond really, really well to being embarrassed like that, right? Now it's a matter of pride. Other players shut down. They get pissed about it. Why didn't you just pull me aside and talk to me about it? You didn't have to embarrass me that way. Their whole head's now out the window. And so you kind of got to know who you're dealing with. And it looks like maybe somebody made the right call in this particular instance. So again, I've been highly critical of Del Rio, but in the last couple of weeks, he seems to have punched all of the right buttons with this defense. And credit where it's due. We sucked hind tit to start the season, and now we're playing better. And so he deserves that public, kudo for it.
Yeah, and wasn't it last year that they moved Collins to linebacker and the defense got better?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes coaches just need to make that move. I was going to ask the same question. How much of that is when Jackson came out of the lineup, right? And that seemed to turn that back seven around some, just like last year with Collins.
And by the way, that defense just shut down Aaron fucking Rodgers.
Well,
how about that? Yeah, we did. So before the season, when we were going down the list of the games this year, nobody penciled in this is a W against Green Bay.
No, you're right, but
yes, it's not the same. It's not the same Green Bay team, and Rodgers looks a little wrong, and I know his thumb apparently was a little hosed up too. But he's still Aaron Rodgers, and there ain't one of us who didn't think he was going to drive them down the field at the end, right? I mean, I know I did. So segueing nicely to a game that we just actually won 2 in a row, a tale of 2 Heineckes.
Hold on, before you go on, did you hear what Aaron Rodgers said on the Pat McAfee show?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Pat McAfee, one of the guys on Pat McAfee, because Rodgers is on there every Tuesday, said, man, the Commanders did a good job of shutting you guys down and blah, blah. You know, what were they doing defensively to scheme up and, you know, take advantage of and all this? And he goes, nothing. And they're like confused. And what do you mean? And basically what he came out to say, and I'm paraphrasing here, was they rushed 4, they beat the crap out of us, is basically what he said. So if you go back and you read the entire transcript, it wasn't, oh, they were disguising, oh, they tricked us. No, it was, they lined up and they bullied us. They had a game plan, they executed the game plan, they didn't deviate from their game plan. They did what they intended to do, and they controlled the game. And that was basically the extent of why he was held to. And if you guys didn't notice, him and Heinicke combined for less than 100 yards passing in the first half.
I noticed. Yeah.
Not to segue to your point, Mark, but it was an interesting quote. But yes.
No, in fairness to Rodgers, he had several passes dropped, some key passes dropped, including that 4th down late, and when they went for it on 4th and 1 and threw the ball for whatever reason. And I mean, he puts it right on the guy's hands and he loses it as he's turning around, and we almost closed out the game at that point. No, Rodgers is not the same Rodgers, but I would have lost a lot of money if I had to bet money on this game on Sunday. I did not think we'd beat those guys.
Hey, we did 2 things. We actually made NFL history in that game. No one had kept the Packers from converting a 3rd down prior to that game since 1999. That's how long it had been. And no one has ever done it to Aaron Rodgers. So with all the caveats that we can throw out there, that's a hell of a performance.
Yeah, 0 for 6 on 3rd downs, other than the penalty ones. But that's a different category. No, we were great on 3rd downs.
We kept drives going, man. The 2nd and 3rd quarters, we just dominated the time of possession. And that's something that we've gotten away from as the season, the bad part of the season progressed. We weren't converting. And I think we were close to 50% on 3rd down. We did pretty well. So we converted 3rd downs. We kept drives going. I know every series that we had, every down, I was like, yes, keep their defense on the field, keep their defense on the field, because you knew it was going to come. It was going to tighten up in the second half. So I thought that was a huge key, was that we didn't have our defense on the field all day long.
We had 7 possessions in the first half. We had 4 in the second, because in the second half we sustained drives. We converted 3rd downs. We held the ball. I remember talking last week about that I thought the big difference in our offense going from Wentz to Heinicke was Heinicke would convert 3rd downs and get us down the field into the red zone. And it would look a lot more like last year. The question was going to be whether we could convert when we got down to the red zone. And we kind of did. We were 1 for 4 in the red zone, but we had a nice touchdown from outside the red zone too. But yeah, John, I made that facetious remark a second ago about a tale of 2 Heineckes. His first half and second half numbers are sort of preposterous.
They are.
And it jumps off. Now, whether or not he had nerves, whatever it was, he balled out in the second half. He played as good a second half as you're going to see from that guy, I think.
Oh, I'm going to steal a page out of John's book. I called it last week. We had 38 rushing attempts to 33 passing attempts. Even if you take Heinicke's rushing attempts and assume that they were busted plays that were supposed to have been passes and not runs, they weren't designed runs, that's still 36 to 35. Better than 50% handing the ball off, better than 50% running the football. Now, I'm not going to defend Carson Wentz, but I do have to ask the question, if we'd had this kind of play balance with Carson Wentz under center, might we have seen different results the last 4 weeks? I think you just got to think about it. And I said it last week, I expected Scott Turner to do this to the playbook.
How many yards rushing do we have in this last game? You're applauding the rushing game.
166.
166.
Yeah, 166.
How many do we have in the first half against Dallas?
Oh, I know.
So
I don't happen to have that in front of me.
140 in the first half, 120 in the first half?
Yeah.
101. We ended at 140.
Okay.
So
I was a little surprised at how many attempts Robinson got. And I'm kind of, I mean, I don't want to diss him because I think he's got a bright future, but I'm still a little bit, when you've got Antonio Gibson averaging like almost 6 yards a carry, but you're giving your rookie running back twice the number of carries. It just seems odd to me that I don't know why. It seems stubborn, like they're
Yeah, but remember, during the
Sorry,
preseason,
John, go ahead.
all of us said Gibson is better when you limit his touches. And we all talked about Gibson being in that sweet spot of 15 to 20 touches a game. Well, he was targeted 4 times in the passing attack and handed the ball 10 times, 14 touches. Granted, I could have stood to see him touch the ball a couple more times, but they brought Robinson in here to be exactly what he is, a hammer, soak up abuse, wear the
I don't think
defense
he's there
down.
yet.
He may
He's
not be there
not
yet,
hammering
but
all that effectively.
he may not be there yet, but you can't argue with the fact that when they change pace, things work.
I would like to have seen those carries split. I think 15-15 would have been a good balance. Gibson was rolling, man. He was on fire. I would like to have seen him get a few more touches. And I don't know, maybe this is just my impression. Robinson looked like he had heavy legs to me. He didn't look quite as explosive, and he didn't bring the heat and the hammer quite as much. And I suspect, he's been injured, then he came back and was playing. I think he had those heavy legs, like training camp legs, because he's just getting going. He just didn't look quite as fresh to me. So I was kind of surprised that they fed him 20 times.
He's dancing more than I would like to see.
Yeah.
That's what I've noticed.
One thing I saw that I loved, and that's the fact that, and again, I'm going to give kudos to somebody I've nearly crucified multiple weeks in a row now. Scott Turner had both of them on the field together, lined up in the same backfield. You know, as much as Derek and I both bitch about the empty set, I thought having Gibson and Robinson together back there was a stroke of genius, because you didn't know where the ball was going. You didn't know what was going to happen. I was thrilled to see that.
So,
You started to say something a minute ago, Derek. Where were you going?
well, my point, Mark, you're a Nats fan, right?
Yeah.
My perfect example of this is I'm gonna throw out 2 names, is Kyle Schwarber and Adam LaRoche. Okay, if you're a Nats fan, you know Adam LaRoche might have had 80 at bats a year, but he would hit 20 home runs and he would have the most clutch RBIs that you would ever see in your life. And people would always scream and yell, "Why is he not getting more at bats? Why is he not getting more at bats?" For some reason, when he had when he got put out there in the fashion he did, it was just perfect. And I look at the way that Gibson played this weekend, and if I wonder if he had 21, 22, 23 attempts, or touches, I wonder if the production would have been the same.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I am not shy about roasting Scott Turner. I'll continue to roast Scott Turner. I still don't think that he utilized the playbook as well as he should have. I don't think we rolled Taylor Heinicke out enough. I don't think we threatened Taylor Heinicke's legs well enough, because not even to use them, just to threaten them. But we were going against a bad defense and an offense that was struggling. So, whatever, even though they scored 5 points more per against us than they did what their average is. I don't think we can survive without forcing defenses to respect Heinicke's legs. And in turn, I don't think we can survive running the same playbook we did with Wentz as we do with Heinicke, just minus the throws over 40 yards. So that's my point on Scott Turner. I still think we could have been better, but back to the original point, I think Gibson was used to perfection. I think Brian Robinson wore the defense down for 2.5 quarters. Antonio Gibson was a threat out of the backfield the way he needs to be, like that first touchdown. Who would have taken the over-under on Antonio Gibson catching a 15-yard touchdown from Taylor Heinicke this game? Nobody, because we hadn't seen it. You know what I mean? It's not something that had been in the playbook. It is. So that is what I wanted to see from Gibson all year long. I want to see the intermediate routes. I want to see him press a linebacker into coverage beyond more than 5 yards past the line of scrimmage, because the dude was a wide receiver in college. Guess what he can do? Play wide receiver. Let's utilize that threat. Let's utilize that matchup. So I give Turner credit there, but Gibson was. I fear if you put the ball in his hand too much, you don't see the production. Yeah, he was averaging 6 yards, but if he had 10 more carries, I don't think he gets another 60 yards a carry.
Yeah, I don't think
That
any of
makes
us
sense.
wanted him to double his production. He had 10 carries. I would have liked to have seen him get 13 or 14 or 15. But that's picking nits now, right? To get the flow of the game and the packages that they're trying to run and all that. We're picking nits here. Gibson had a great game. He just had a great game.
It's not Robinson. And I just want to clarify my point. It's not Robinson versus Gibson.
Right.
It's rookie versus proven
Fair.
performer. And you got Curtis Samuel, who every time he's getting the ball is making electric plays, who could have gotten it a few more times. I have no
Well,
problem.
and we're not seeing McKissick at all.
Right. He might be
Right.
odd man out. I mean, really.
Yeah, McKissick had one carry for 4 yards.
Why
He
did they
had 2
resign him?
targets and no catches.
Yeah, you wonder if he's wondering why the hell didn't I go to Buffalo, right, Patrick? He's
So Patrick, I want to ask you a question. Explain to me what in the hell happened to Taylor Heinicke at halftime? How can you start that badly and then flip a switch at halftime and look and do what he did? That's what I want to know.
I have no idea. 'Cause, you know, when you watch the video of all his throws, I think it was, what was he 1 for 6 or 1 for 7 to start the game? And most of those throws were interceptions.
Late. They were
You know,
late. They were late throws. A lot
Yeah,
of them.
they should have been picked off. And
No, he had 2 drops, but yeah, there were at least 4 balls in there that should have been picked off. Green Bay has a right to be mad. This game could have been out of reach by halftime.
yeah, but I think that's probably what, you know, gave him the confidence. He said, look, I played about as bad as I could play in the first half. And I can't remember, were they winning at half or was it close?
no 14-10 we were down.
Okay, right. But they're right in the game, right? They're right in the game at half, but with the quarterback playing about as bad as you can play. And he pretty much said, I can do this, which that's one of the advantages he has over Wentz is when he makes mistakes, he just doesn't care.
Well,
With Wentz, it feels like when he
The
makes
touchdown came right after the interception. The first touchdown,
Yeah.
right on the heels of that interception, which is
After that interception, he got the ball back and took us on a 12-play, 83-yard, 6-minute drive and finished
Yep.
it off with that touchdown pass to Gibson. That was a big-time NFL throw.
was.
As much as we rag on Taylor's arm, that was a big-time NFL throw. So yeah, he really turned it on after that pick. He was like a different guy, and that was still in the first half.
And if you think about his career, think about last year, that was not uncommon. He'd go out and make a giant mistake.
Yep.
And the next drive, he'd go back out and atone for that giant mistake. He just seems to have a sense of, a serious sense of responsibility, accountability. All right, I screwed this thing up. Now I got to go fix it.
he
And
gets that frowny face, man. You can see it on the sideline. He's like,
and and I think we've been missing that in Washington for a while. I'm not sure there's a lot of that kind of personal accountability of I screwed up, now I got to go fix it type guys out there. I think there are a lot of guys on the team that go, hey man, you screwed up. Let's go fix this as a team. Taylor Heinicke's not. I don't care about this team shit at that point in time. I have to go fix what I did wrong. And
I think that's
a very
something
personal
that
thing.
It's too bad that there's not a metric for the intangibles. Because if there was, Taylor Heinicke's intangibles are just off the charts.
Yeah.
His teammates love to play for the guy. They're not shy about saying it, which is kind of rare. You root so hard for him, and I still don't think he's the big time long-term NFL quarterback based on his physical limitations. But good God, not the off the field stuff, but the it factor thing. I mean, the guy just oozes it, and his teammates see it. And you can see it lift the team, right? You can see it lift the offense. There's a spring in the step that Wentz doesn't have that. We haven't seen that much. Well, Heinicke's got some sort of special magic when he's playing well. He didn't when we played Dallas twice down the stretch last year. I remember those games too. And Taylor Heinicke looked like he was completely in over his head. So, but at least in this game, from after that interception, he rallied and played his ass off. And you just love the guy for that.
he's a tough bugger too, man. I mean, that guy took some licks, some big time licks, and just got up and went back to work.
You see him get that hit in the face from somebody and look up at the ref like,
Yeah.
the fuck? Why don't I get that call? Well, that's because you're Taylor Heinicke, son.
You're right. His intangibles are absolutely off the charts. And I don't think when whatever it is on, Mark, I don't think there's 5 guys in the league that have whatever it is that Taylor Heinicke has. And if he had the physical tools of Brady, Aaron Rodgers, oh my gosh, Lamar Jackson, if he had those physical tools,
Hell, Mitch Trubisky, if he just had that arm, right? That's all
Right.
he's missing.
yeah,
He has 80% of the physical tools. The problem is the most important thing in the pass game,
Yeah.
and that's the arm.
yeah. But you know what? The more I watch him, the more I think if Scott Turner had the talent to tailor this offense, see what I did there? Tailor this offense around him. I'm not sure we're having a conversation about his arm strength, but I don't think that I don't think this offense he's pared the playbook down to do some specific things with Taylor. And obviously he runs the ball more with Taylor than he ever has with any other quarterback he's ever, been the OC for. But if he really got a mind to design this around the tools Taylor does have, it'd be very interesting to see what the offense looked like.
But he had
Well,
all
for
of last year to
games.
do that. Like, I
For
mean,
games,
he was
'cause
the quarterback
Heinicke-
all last year.
Say
Yeah,
that
but we
again,
didn't-
Patrick?
I was just saying, Scott Turner had all of last year to do that.
And he
had a
didn't
whole
do
year
it.
Taylor Heinicke to tailor the audience, or
And
to
he
tailor the offense, excuse me. And he didn't do it, right? As you say, he pared it down, but he could have built an offense around his strengths, and he didn't, right? Which
What
is
does
why
that
they
mean,
were
though, guys? Explain. I'd like to hear more about that. What does that mean? What is the offense
Oh, yeah,
look like?
John, you've pointed it out. Taylor Heinicke is elite outside of the pocket when I'm talking about his physical abilities. Yet we don't see the play action boot. We don't see. You want to talk about we witnessed read option with Carson Wentz, and we haven't seen it with Taylor Heinicke.
It's true,
Explain
but
this to me.
he's reckless, man. He won't survive it. That's the only point I would make. Is it's fine to say that they should. I want him to run. I wanted to see designed runs.
I'm not asking him to run. I'm
As a-
asking. I want to break the pocket. I want to move the pocket. He's 5'0" 100 and nothing. He's Rudy playing quarterback. Okay, get him outside of the pocket so that he doesn't have to play and look like. There was an interview with him. I want to say it was middle of last year, and they were talking about his offense. And he said, they said, how do you anticipate throws over the line that you can't see over? He goes, I'm throwing it to a spot. I can't see what's going on the other side of the line. I'm throwing it where I know the ball's supposed to be. And if the receiver's there, it's a catch. If not, it's a disaster.
So, Derek, all I'm saying is if you're on your second quarterback, you're unexpectedly like one game out of the playoff, right, as of today or something like that. They might be thinking, let's not take the chance of our current starter getting knocked out of the game. And
I agree.
No,
I agree. And look, I'm going to say something that's going to make a lot of people on this podcast sick. Philly is undefeated in a weak NFC. And what did they just do? They traded for a fucking defensive lineman. You know why? They're in a position they weren't expected to be in. So they're giving up future assets to take advantage of an opportunity.
And they have a
You have
quarterback
a
on a rookie
quarterback.
contract.
Well, you have a quarterback. His skill set does not match the skill set of Kyle Allen. It doesn't match the skill set of Carson Wentz. It doesn't match the skill set of Alex Smith, who's had his leg bit off by a shark, reattached, and held on by dental floss and duct tape. It doesn't match the skill set of Dwayne Haskins. It's a different skill set, but we see the same offense. If you want to tell Heinicke, okay, you want to know what one of my favorite plays out of Heinicke was in this game this past weekend? It was 3rd and goal from the 2, and he goes rolling out, and instead of trying to make something dumb happen and get hurt, he puts the ball into the 4th row to preserve the field goal.
Smart play.
It was a stupid fucking play call because it's 3rd and 2 and you're getting them for 6.5 on the run. So I can't say that Scott Turner did anything right there, but Heinicke did.
I thought
you
you
can
all know.
utilize-
Okay, I got to call you on that, brother. That was the rollout we were hoping to see, right?
But yeah, at the 30, not at the 2, not when you're dominating the line of scrimmage with your run game.
I looked at that drive, bro. I was looking at that drive because I knew that was going to come up. I wasn't a big fan of, I wasn't a big fan of all those play calls, but that's where we got a chance to put away the game, right?
I know.
If we punch it in there,
right.
we get the field goal. It's first and goal at the 7, Robinson for no gain. Second down from the 7.
Hold on. Look at the alignment on that run to Robinson. We had been running a heavy set with Robinson off tackle and getting yardage. If I'm remembering correctly, if I go back and pull it up, I think we went empty. We went single back out of the shotgun and handed that on an inside zone with only 5 down linemen. This is where the whole game schematics change things. That wasn't a single back, first and goal at the 7, handed off tackle, power run, running play. We were running it with a limited offensive line with a guy out of the shotgun. That is where you run a read option and you let Taylor Heinicke see if he can get the corner. Not on third down at the 2-yard line.
Well, I mean, I got nothing, bro. That's I mean, it's easy just for us to sit here and say we should have called a different play because the one we called didn't work. So
hindsight's 2020. Had it worked, we would all been applauding and said it was great.
You're right, and we would have said, "Look at him! He gave it to Robinson and ran it up the middle. By God, that's what we've been asking him to do." So
we're really missing Logan Thomas right now. That's one thing that I hope his calf is better.
And believe it or not, and Dotson. Dotson's a red zone monster, and missing him last week hurt, man.
Is he back this week? Are we going to have him this weekend?
So.
He re-aggravated the injury. I mean,
Yeah.
he's probably on the show for at least another 2.
You know,
Logan Thomas was partially he was out there today a little bit, so there's hope that he might come back.
our
And
tight
Turner
ends
missing.
combined for 5 targets and 3 catches.
Paul Turner.
No,
Cole Turner had 2 targets and 0 catches.
all the tight
And
ends.
and a concussion.
Armani Rogers had 3 targets, 3 catches for 28 yards.
I like Armani Rogers, by
Yeah.
the way. That guy's
I
fine.
do too, and I think we're going to like Cole Turner. I think he's just, he's a rookie.
How
What,
deep
this
did
was
our-
what his 3rd active game. I think this is what just his 3rd active game of his pro career, and he didn't even play big college ball. So
But he's
Well, he played
concussed, right?
quarterback.
So we might not see him for a while.
Right? Rogers is the converted quarterback, correct?
Armani,
Yes.
Is he another converted? Yeah, actually, I think I remember hearing
Yeah,
that.
He's a converted quarterback. So he's only played tight end about 10 games more than you and I have, Bob.
that's 10 games. So there you go. I want to go back to Heinicke just for a second. The more I watch him play, and I'm going to hate that. I hate saying this because there's a guy out there somewhere that's going to laugh his ass off at me when I say this. I would love to see more of the same, not every play, but I would like to see a half dozen plays a game that come right out of Joe Gibbs' playbook for Joe Theismann.
Roll it out.
The play action rollout. Yeah. The play action rollout, the naked bootleg from the 2, line up in heavy jumbo and naked bootleg that thing.
Yes.
I don't understand. I just, to me, it's granted, I get that you're a little worried that Taylor might be a little fragile. I understand that. But if you sell that play right, Taylor walks in untouched. There's a guy within 5 yards of him because he can fake the ball.
Damn, you just made Mark quit. What the hell?
Well, I didn't want to laugh at you, so I just left.
All right.
We got a game on Sunday,
We
guys.
do have a game Sunday. We have a game against a rookie quarterback behind a beaten up offensive line in an offense that has been underachieving with very few offensive weapons and a questionable run game because their first and second running backs are coming off of injury. I set that all up to say I'm kind of anxious and nervous because somehow Washington finds a way to make rookies look like professionals.
So
And
he's second year. He ran it 3 times last season. So he's got 3 rushing plays under his belt.
Hasn't
just
thrown a
remember-
pass.
But I
He's
looked
an
at the
unknown
stats for
quantity,
Texas.
right?
Mhm.
So for the last 30 years, this is where Washington teams stumble, right? They 2 wins in a row. 2 weeks ago, the season's over, and is Rivera quitting or getting fired? Are we drafting a quarterback now? We have a chance to be 500 at midseason, which is what a lot of us, and me certainly, was saying. That's all my only expectation any year. Get to midseason at 500, no worse than 500, so you have a chance down the second half. Traditionally, we have these games every year. It seems it comes down to this, and our team has come up short. And sometimes it's against the quarterback who's never played before. Hasn't this happened?
At least it's not on Monday Night Football at home, right?
It's not, but I mean, nobody here, I guarantee, is confident that our team's going to come out and slap down the Colts.
No, you just don't know.
Even though we should.
I
Don't
think
they say
we should.
they say bet with your head, not with your heart, right?
I mean, they've got maybe the best running back in the NFL.
Yeah, but he's not doing anything this year because his offensive line can't block
The
anybody.
line
And
can't block
he's
anyone.
been hurt. He's been hurt.
And I see the strength of our team right now is our defensive line. John Allen's got to be having problems sleeping this week because Sunday's got to look like Christmas to him.
Except that Ellinger, I mean, he's a runner.
I know.
He's going to run it 10, 12 times, designed runs. And the team, they got to be disciplined in their rush. He reminds me, I went back and looked at YouTubes of Sam Ellinger because I have no life. He looks to me like Daniel Jones. He's a Daniel Jones kind of runner. He's a pretty damn good athlete. I don't know if he can throw the ball or not, but he's got a good set of wheels.
I don't think he's particularly fast. I think you're right that that we need to be worried about that part of it, but I don't think he's like a burner. He's just, and the other thing is that Texas, he hardly ever threw picks. He threw a lot of touchdowns and didn't throw a lot of picks, which tells you he's probably a pretty good decision maker. But it is Washington, right? So
right.
One of the big knocks against him in college was that he was doing it against inferior competition. He wasn't doing it against the SEC. He wasn't doing it against the Big Ten. He was doing it against some of the, Texas was always an underachieving team in a conference that has been consistently underachieving. So that was the biggest knock against Ellinger. Ellinger's athletic. I don't want to put him on the level of Heinicke, but yeah, I think Daniel Jones is a good comp, but I think he has a better arm than Jones. Because there were some plays in Texas that I saw that guy heave the ball from about the 35 and it landed in the end zone. Did
you guys see the interview of Reich? I don't know who the guy was that was interviewing him, and I kind of hate this kind of gotcha kind of sports journalism, but the guy said, so we've watched Matt Ryan struggle and this season go down the tubes, and so your solution to that is starting a guy who's never played an thrown an NFL pass before. Some of us are wondering if you know what the hell you're doing. I mean, that literally was what he said to Frank Reich, which I think is awful. And I didn't catch all of I don't think there was much of a response other than kind of a glare, but it's really got to be bad for the Colts. You look at what they did over the last year, blaming, scapegoating Wentz and sending him packing and gloating about it. And then now they brought Matt Ryan in with all this pageantry and, high hopes. And now they're going to a guy who's never thrown an NFL pass. I mean, that's not a good season.
you guys may have read this. I read it, and I think it was Florio on Pro Football Talk about the whole benching of Matt Ryan is absolutely a financial decision at this point in time. He is due a guaranteed roster bonus next year. He is due a guaranteed, second half of a bonus if he's injured. And right now, he's not going to be so injured that they couldn't release him. They'll have to eat some money, but they will not have to eat the guaranteed money that they would have to eat if he finishes the season injured, because they'd have to keep him on the roster. They'd have to pay him both of these bonuses. And it's like almost $20 million in guaranteed money that would be added to the already ridiculous sum of guaranteed money that they're going to have to eat if they dump him at the end of the year. And the feeling that is, amongst people that actually pinch pennies and pay attention to, the financial side of rosters, is that this is absolutely a business decision on the part of Irsay, that the coaching staff has already decided Ryan is not the guy. And with the coaching staff deciding that, Irsay said, shut him down. I don't want to have to pay him if he's not the guy.
Yeah.
And I don't want to
They'll
risk
give
him
us a
getting any
first
more
for
hurt than he
Wentz.
is.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Mark.
No, it would have been better with better timing. I said maybe they'll give us a first for Wentz.
Well, and you know, I mean, it's Irsay doing the same thing to a certain degree that fans here are talking about at this point in time. I mean, if we're not closer to in the playoff hunt, and if we are closer to in the playoff hunt, do you go back to a guy that lost 4 out of 5 games, or do you keep the guy that got you back into the playoff hunt? That becomes the question. But you know, the bigger question becomes, do you risk tripping that 70% mark and having to bump that third to a second next year? Or do you just quietly keep Carson on the bench just to keep a second round draft pick?
I think
Well, you're not keeping.
I
You're
think
not
cross the
keeping a
bridge when you
second. All it means is you're just not trading the second for a third.
No, you're
Sorry, go
keeping
ahead,
the
Patrick.
second. You're giving him the third.
Right.
What were you going to say, Patrick?
I just think you cross that bridge when you get there. That's, you know, Wentz is out another 3-4 weeks at least, right? A lot can happen. Heinicke could turn into an all-world quarterback, or he could, you know, turn into the Dallas quarterback he was last year.
Well,
So
God, let me find something to knock on. He could get hurt between now and the time Wentz comes back, and we could have Sam Howell back there and all of us begging to see Carson Wentz again.
yeah, I didn't want to bring that up, but that's the other thing, right? I mean, you still have time. You know, thankfully, you don't have to make that decision right now. But you know, I think we've all said, you know, once it gets too deep in the season, you're out of it. Put Howell in and see what he can do. But you know, now that Heinicke's in the game, you let him roll, see what happens, and you know, if Wentz is ready to come back, you make that decision. I think if Heinicke's playing well, or you know, decent enough and they're winning, you stick with him.
What do you guys think about facing Ellinger versus facing Ryan? When I first saw the news, my first instinct was, oh shit, I would have loved to have taken on Ryan the way our defensive line is playing right now. And
Yeah,
you know where he's going to be, right? We're not going to be chasing him around. Now we got to run around and chase this rookie that we don't know anything about.
yeah, that would have been, we would have turned in the sack numbers against Ryan that the Lions and the Eagles turned in against us early in the season.
I think you're right.
Yeah, it would have been a
Well,
defensive show.
here,
Well, the hope here, right, is that you got the rookie and you can maybe confuse him a little bit and rattle him. If you put him on his ass a couple of times, he might throw the ball to you. So it's either way, it's better than facing Mahomes or Josh Allen, right?
well, there's only 28 quarterbacks you'd rather face than Mahomes and Josh Allen. Just saying. I think part of it. I think we need to do what got us here, and I think we need to not let Ellinger see open players, and let Allen and Payne eat. You know what I mean? Like, I hope we don't get cute. I hope we don't get to the point where we're telegraphing a blitz and Ellinger can take that extra second to look over and realize his hot read and give him that bailout so that slant route goes 64 for a touchdown. You know what I mean? Like,
So these guys have not scored. They've scored they've scored 20 points or more once this year. So we're
against
not
the Chiefs, right?
I mean, if they come out and become a scoring machine, it'll be the first time they did it this season. And I mean, I do think it's true. You don't have film on the kid other than college, really. And we know our history with mobile quarterbacks, and he's not going to be a statue, as you all said. But I think the real key has nothing to do with their quarterback. I think it has to do with us pounding the ball down their throats. They're not good against the run. I think they're like 23rd against the rush, their defense. I think we can run it on them. And I think we do the exact same thing we did against the Packers. We don't let them we keep the ball, you know, we rack up 10 extra minutes of time of possession. We have sustained drives. We don't give them a bunch of chances. And then we put the kid in the dirt, like Mark alluded to, and welcome him to the NFL starting quarterback ranks by putting some dirt in his face mask.
No, I think you're 100% right. If we can control time of possession again, it's the Heinicke formula, right? When we were winning games with them last year, it was the same formula. We hold the ball, we score enough, and the defense does its job. We need that again this week. And then all of a sudden we're 4-4 and people are talking about playoff scenarios.
Can I be kind of an asshole for a second?
You don't have it in you.
You mean, wait, for just a,
Hold on.
just a
We're
second.
we're facing a team that's completely underachieving, has just benched their, as you guys have pointed out, borderline Hall of Fame quarterback. They're running with an inexperienced starting, essentially rookie, behind a bad offensive line with 2 injured running backs, and we're arguing we need to win time of possession to control the narrative. When are we going to reach a point where we say we should just go out and fucking win? Let's go out and beat somebody's ass for a change, right?
Well, maybe when we do it. When's the last
Okay,
we've done that? We haven't done that very much, Derek. My confidence level ain't there yet.
I know that's the sad part.
It's sad.
We should be, this team on both sides of the ball should be looking at this game and just salivating.
I
This
hear
is-
you. But we were on the last play of the
This
game. We
is
were holding our
depressing,
breath, Eric,
guys.
last
Like
week.
and I'm not
That was
asking
a
you
good
to-
performance.
This is depressing. This is a sad state of affairs, man. When nothing that they have on offense should scare us. Who's their number one receiver? Michael Pittman's coming off of injury, right? If I'm remembering correctly, he's been nicked up. Paris Campbell's their number 2. Their number 3 is a guy named Alec Pierce, a rookie out of Cincinnati, who I was like tooting the horn for. Like, where they have the best guard in football, but beyond that, what is going on? Like, when can we expect to win? It's sad. I'm not saying it's a rhetorical question, but when can we look at this and expect to win and say, you know what, we got it. I'm confident. No, we
That
need to
is not
control the
this
ball for
game.
42 minutes, and we need to win the game 21-17, and it'll be a grinder. That's what we're looking at right now.
I blame Snyder.
I don't know. We probably say something like this every other week or so, but I think a lot of it depends on the first couple of defensive series. This kid's not just a rookie. These are his first pro snaps that aren't preseason, and we all know what the preseason looks like, right? It's very vanilla. It's very
Don't
slow.
get anybody hurt on purpose.
Right, exactly. There are a lot of caveats that go into preseason. These are going to be his first professional snaps. And if by some fluke we allow this kid to get comfortable, get 4 or 5 completions, and feel good about life and start to develop that confidence, he needs somebody in his face very early. What was Al Davis said, the quarterback must go down, and he must go down hard. And I don't care whether he's got the ball or not. In all honesty, it's not going to bother me too much if I see a really lousy penalty early in the game because the guy got steamrolled when he shouldn't have gotten steamrolled. But he needs to understand that this is a different game than he played in college. He needs to understand it's played at a different level. And he needs to question whether he is in the right profession. By the end of the second or third, he may be a brilliant quarterback at some point in time, but everybody's got a first game sometime, and the first few snaps really dictate how the game goes for a lot of rookies. And if we let him get confidence.
So it's not just that you don't believe in Cinderella. You want Cinderella's glass slipper like thrown against the wall and smashed. You want her pumpkin carriage torn up into little bits and she has to take a Uber home. That's the whole thing.
Unless she's my girl, yes. Unless she's my girl, yes. I want her abused. Yeah. Now, if she's my girl, that slipper better fit, baby.
So, John,
According to ESPN, Mr. Ellinger is 6'1", 220. Mr. Heinicke is 6'1", 210. Remember Heinicke's first start? He did pretty well, right? And all I'm saying is you just don't know what you're getting with this kid.
No, you don't know.
No idea. We have no idea
don't.
what he's going to do. We don't know what they might run read option with him all night. They might run pistol with him all night. We have no idea what they're going to do.
See, and that's the thing. We got tape on him from college. Frank Reich is accounted one of the better offensive minds in the league today. And I'd be really surprised if he comes out and plays exactly the same offense with this kid that he tried to do with Matt Ryan.
No, he's completely going to shake it up. I was going to say a minute ago, you were talking about wanting to not be too cute with our defense. I do think because he is a rookie, you're going to see Del Rio. He's going to be moving people around. Well, we may run very simple sets, but we're going to disguise them and have people dancing around at the line and coming up and shifting just to try to confuse the kid and slow him down.
That's fine. That's fine. But know that when the ball is snapped, our front four can beat their front five. And interior pressure, get in his face so he can't step up, force him. And you know, I really hope we see a spy. If he breaks the pocket, I want to see a rocket come out of that secondary with wearing 52, and he is running full speed. I don't care if he misses. I just want Ellinger to say, "Oh shit, that would have hurt," and make him rethink that breaking of the tackles. You know what I mean? And force him to question whether or not he wants to take off running or not.
And when Davis takes him down the first time, I want him to whisper very quietly in Ellinger's ear, "I'm here all day, son. All day."
You got 57 more minutes of this, baby.
Well, I'm sure there's more than that being said. I'm sure it's a lot more colorful than that.
But see, I think it's a lot scarier when it's not comfortable, when it's not colorful. You know, I mean, I think one of the scariest things ever uttered by somebody in a Washington uniform was that day against Dallas when Dave.
Hey,
Bush
Randy,
said, "Go for
we're
it."
coming at you.
So you're a I'll eat your soul.
All right, Patrick, I'm throwing it to you. Predictions. What's going to happen? I'm putting you on the spot, brother.
I'd like to see them, kind of continue the last conversation, but I'll give a prediction. I'd like to see them play the Colts this weekend like they played the Bears, right? They spied Fields. They tried to keep him in the pocket. Yes, he escaped because he's a phenomenal athlete, but, they really made him uncomfortable all game. I want to see that this weekend. They do that, they could win this game 24-27 to, 17, right? I'm not calling for that big, because this team has a way to let other teams back in. It very well could be another 24-21 game. Like that was almost a score last weekend. So, I'm going to go with that 24. I'll say 24-20 Commanders.
Mark, I see it. What do you think?
Yeah. This will be the first time I've picked us to win this year. Except for the Jags game. I picked us to beat the Jags game. Last week was the first time I was wrong. I picked us to lose to Green Bay. So I was really happy to be wrong. I do think that we are going to learn some of the lessons from Green Bay, and we're going to try to protect Taylor Heinicke from himself a little bit, run the ball, try to control the clock. Hopefully if we have 4 red zone possessions, we get more than 1 touchdown out of it. Joey Sly, I don't want him being the difference in this game. I think we need a couple of offensive touchdowns, and I think we need 26 points, probably 24, 26 to win. I have no idea what Ellinger's going to do. I think he's going to have some big plays. I think he's going to make a couple of big plays. I don't know that it's going to be enough. I have a hard time seeing them score more than 17 offensive points. So if we cannot spike ourselves and throw a pick 6 or fumble the punt and give up a defensive touchdown, I'm having a hard time seeing us find a way to lose this one. I shouldn't even say that out loud. So I'm going to go Commanders 24 and Colts 16.
I like it. So that's two for the Commanders. What do you got, John?
So with the caveat that you're always afraid to predict, anything positive as a Washington fan, but I actually think this is a game that we should win convincingly, and I think we will win it convincingly. I think Heinicke is going to actually play the full game this week, which will be very helpful. And I think he's going to be hitting receivers in stride right out of the gate instead of waiting for an entire half to do it or most of a half to do it. And I think the defense is going to I think it'll be something in the neighborhood of 26-14 with a safety in there. And if we don't win this game, we're not going to make the playoffs. That's how strongly I feel about it, because if you can't beat Indy in this situation, you're not going to win many games. We have a far superior pass rush. I mean, where are they better than us other than maybe, I don't know where special teams. I don't know. I wouldn't even give them that.
O-line.
Maybe. I
I
mean,
don't know.
which isn't,
Maybe.
that's not a high bar right now. Right. But I just feel like this is a game we should win, go out just like
linebacker. They're a hell of a lot better than some linebacker. I'm
Yeah,
just saying.
there you go.
So if the offense can play, if we can put up 20+ points, we're going to win the game. That's what I think, because I think our defense is going to be all over them. I don't know. We'll see.
Bob.
30-17 with a defensive touchdown.
Jesus Christ, I love it. Do you know how happy I would be with that?
30-17 with a defensive touchdown. All right, so here's the thing. And this is and I've already made up my mind. I'm bringing this up every week until it changes. If you look up our stats for the year, John Allen is our interception leader. That's got to change, man. That's got to change.
With an assist from F.A. Obata's face mask.
Exactly. I'm seeing, I think I hesitate to put a name on it, but I'm feeling bold. St. Juice gets his first pick six.
Mm.
And Taylor Heinicke plays a great game. We balance the run and the pass just like we did this last week, pretty much 50-50. Robinson and, the law firm of Robinson, Gibson and McKissick runs wild. And I don't know. And I guess what I'm doing is I'm picking what should happen. Is that really what will happen? That's a great question. And we'll know Sunday night, won't we?
What I think will happen is we'll have a repeat of last week, 23-21, and we're going to be biting our nails until the final horn. Maybe not to the extent of what we did before, where, Rodgers put one between his center's legs to end the football game, but something similar where it's coming down to the end, maybe a late defensive turnover, maybe a late turnover on downs as they're trying to drive to get into field goal range. So 23-21 Commanders.
And we got to give a shout out to our Canadian brethren.
Yeah,
Mark. I was going to say, let's let Paul close it out. Can I read Paul's little blurb?
Absolutely.
Paul couldn't be
Do
here.
it to it, brother.
He says, and I'm not going to try to do it in his wonderful accent because that would be doing him a disservice, but
Just say,
a
"Hey,"
very
after every other word.
inexperienced Sam Ellinger is the perfect recipe for a defensive line that has flat out been dominating in recent weeks, proving it's the strongest unit on our team. In Rivera's first season in Washington, the DL feasted on lesser-known QBs around the NFL when we made our late season run. I can see this Sunday being the same type of game where we create a few turnovers on young Ellinger and maybe even have a defensive score. Our safety play and continued quick improvement from my Canadian comrade on the outside,
St. Juice.
Benjamin St. Just, gives me reason to believe this might be possible. We're coming off a game where we held the Packers running backs to only 38 yards on the ground, which we didn't talk about much, but that's
No.
so that was a big key. And I believe if we can contain Jonathan Taylor, and force Ellinger to make plays through the air, we'll be in good shape. Nothing comes easy for this team, but I see a 23-17 victory being possible. 4-4, let's go. Oh, and sell the team.
Yes, please.
But by the way, I posted that tweet online. Somebody mentioned that the Commanders are 2-0 when the fans are chanting "sell the team" on TV. So let's keep that chant going.
Keep it going, baby. Keep it going.
So I just wanted to mention one thing. I was looking at the game preview that the team puts out, and we don't play the Colts very often. We played them 6 times since 1999. We lost 5 of the 6, and we have not beaten them on the road since before 2000. So they're doing ass kicking, I guess is what I'm saying.
How many of those games were with Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck?
Oh, I'm
I
sure,
was
yeah.
going to say, what's the over-under on Peyton Manning starts?
Yeah.
All right, boys. It's been a pleasure.
All right,
Patrick,
gentlemen.
it's been awesome to have you join us. Thank you for coming on. You know, you're welcome obviously in the family anytime you want. You're part of the BGO family. So anybody out there listening, jump on board, mix it up. Let's have some fun. We can talk some football.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Night, gentlemen.
Thank guys.
Night night.